Welcome to this Easter Sunday reflection. I have found this reflection, which I really liked very, very much, about the meaning of Easter. And I would like to share it with you. So often we are told, enjoy yourself now while you can, because you're going to be a long time dead. Being a long time dead is what God protests against today. When we celebrate Easter, we rejoice in a God who faces death frankly, squarely, and who outstares it with the power of his own love. Resurrection is God's protest against the finality of death. It is laughter in the tomb. It is the surprise of life overcoming the inevitability of death. Resurrection is God having the last laugh. Today, we exult in a God who refuses to leave the dead forever dead. Jesus did suffer a violent death. He was buried. But the Father has no intention of letting Jesus rest in peace. He gives death no permission to hold Jesus as the permanent victim of other people's violence. The Father's undying affection to Jesus sweeps death aside as he claims his beloved Son again. Nothing can come between them. When we celebrate Easter, we hold the memory of God's great act in raising Jesus from the dead. We believe that God's graciousness will be extended to ourselves and that our own death will not be the final word. But is our faith in the resurrection limited to remembering Jesus' resurrection and hoping for our own on the last day? What happens between times? What about today? When we look at our world today, we have to close our eyes and our ears not to see and hear how suffering, violence continue to disfigure so many people. There are people here today who can feel their wounds. What does the resurrection of Jesus say to all this? The challenge of Easter today is to understand the history of human suffering in the light of Jesus' resurrection. This means that we have to take God's part in protesting against the violence and the suffering that are accepted so readily as inevitable. Death is not just a fate that we meet at the end of our lives. We see death all around us, in the midst of life. Death is an evil power now. It is the economic death of the person we allow to starve, the political death of the people who are oppressed, the social death of the disabled, the noisy death that strikes through bombs and torture, the soundless death of the passive, apathetic souls. To accept this litany of death as inevitable is to empty the resurrection of its power for today. A resurrection faith faces the cross, protests against the finality of that violence. It educates us to see as God sees, to act as so many of God's chosen do act today, when with enormous courage they refuse to genuflect to the powers of darkness that use suffering, death as their tools to keep power. The resurrection of Jesus is a proclamation that this man, Jesus, an outcast from Galilee, is the beloved of God who cannot be held in the keep of death. Someone else takes action. Jesus did not raise himself. He was raised by God. This truth gives hope and help to all those who want that miracle to happen again and be repeated in the midst of life. They believe that God's work continues, not least because they believe in the words of Jesus, I am the resurrection and the life. Today, we can all catch something of the reality of the resurrection when we experience new life in the midst of hopelessness. And this is happening around us, close to us every day, everywhere we look around. We see it in hospital wards when tired nurses hug people back from death. We see it in the men and women who risk their lives protesting against the mindless violence inflicted on their fellow human beings. We can see it in the beloved disciples who see in the dark what no one else sees. For all this, yes, today we rejoice. It is Easter in our midst. It is the refusal to accept that anyone should be left long time dead. God bless you and happy Easter.